Mitchell, Chair of the San Diego Housing Commission Board of Commissioners, and it is 9:12 on July 21st, 2023, and I'm going to call this meeting to order, the regular meeting and special meeting of the San Diego Housing Commission Board. We are meeting in person this morning with commissioners, staff, and members of the public in attendance. We have a quorum with 4 members of the commission board present. Video of today's meeting is also being streamed live and online. The link to watch today's meeting is on the Housing Commission website at www.sdhc.org. Members of the public who wish to provide public comments to the board will need to complete a speaker slip here in the boardroom and submit it to our Vice President of Communications, Scott Marshall, who is standing at the side of the boardroom. In a moment, I will be proposing that agenda items 100 and 101 on the regular meeting agenda be placed on a consent agenda for today's meeting. Members of the public may provide comments about the items on the consent agenda by submitting a speaker request form for that item before the board considers the consent agenda. I will also note that later in today's meeting, we will take one item out of order. The board will hear an action related to item 106 from the special meeting agenda before the informational workshop, which is item 105 on the regular meeting agenda. To speak in favor of any item on today's agenda, please submit a gold-colored form. To speak in opposition to any agenda, please submit a pink-colored form. And those who wish to address the board about a topic that is not on the agenda should fill out a white speaker slip. Members of the public will have 3 minutes each to provide their comments about the agenda items or non-agenda public comments. However, if a large number of people wish to provide non-agenda public comments or speak on a single agenda item, the comments will be limited to 1 minute each. Collective testimony by those who support or oppose an item shall be limited to no more than 15 minutes total per side. When I call your name, please step to the podium, state your name for the record, and begin making your comments. We will now move to the non-agenda public comment section. Now is the time, and I know I have received 3 slips, plus we have one additional that Scott Marshall will be reading into the record. So we will start with Clovis Honore. I haven't seen Clovis in forever. Hi, Clovis, good to see you.
Likewise, looking forward to the opportunity.
All right.
That helps.
Yes, Clovis, you have been seated time by Darren Fishman. So you will have
Darwin.
Darwin.
Okay.
So you will have 6 minutes.
Okay,
total.
and it should not take this long. Again, my name is Clovis Honore. I am here to read a letter to you from Richard Lawrence, former chair of the San Diego Community Land Trust and the San Diego Affordable Housing Coalition. The letter is addressed to Eugene Mitchell, Chair, San Diego Housing Commission. Dear Chairman Mitchell, I had the honor of being nominated by Mayor Fieldner for a seat on the Housing Commission, and while that nomination was still under consideration, I had several long meetings with Mr. Gentry to discuss the mission, makeup, and programs of the commission. We freely exchanged ideas, and I got the impression we came to respect each other and were friends in the struggle for affordable housing. We even discussed the San Diego Housing Commission working to convince the city to follow the lead of Chicago and other cities of the nation to create a city-run community land trust, CLT. It is impossible to state how deeply disappointed I am by Mr. Gentry's failure to keep a promise made to me by former Mayor Chief of Staff Chris Mitchell that he would have the staff of the Housing Commission do a comprehensive study of community land trusts. This national study was to determine, 1, if the national experience with CLT supports our CLT's belief that the CLT is a better tool for providing subsidies to working class families than the current SDHC's first-time homebuyer program, and 2, whether the commission should support the creation of a community land trust in San Diego. I became founding chair of the San Diego Community Land Trust, organized after the Jacobs Family Foundation sent Charles Davis, Elaine Kennedy, and me to the CLT National Conference in Colorado. We loved the vision of a self-supporting developer of affordable homes and the successes presented there by George Kennedy of the Ford Foundation and representatives of established CLTs. So we organized a community conference at the Jacobs Center, and the community urged we get to work and organize a CLT in San Diego. We worked for 10 years trying to make that SDCLT a success, and while it was easy to point fingers, we were offered a site for 16 units in Nestor and worked feverishly for 5 years to satisfy Real Estate Assets Department's criteria and win approval of our plan for the parcel of surplus land in Nestor that the SDHC had previously assessed and rejected. While it is true we came very close, nonetheless, we failed. The SDCLT raised and spent more than $1 million on technical studies, development plans, and operating costs. I feel deeply saddened that our nonprofit development effort could not deliver to the funders who supported us the 16 homes with 3 or 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms for sale on Nestor for roughly $300,000. We owe the Catholic Campaign for Human Development and risk an enormous debt, which we can only pay if a land trust is created. We know that what we have learned is very valuable, and we never wanted to own the SDCLT. We called ourselves the founding board of directors, hoping somebody would adopt us and create a permanent board of directors, of which 1/3 would be renters or owners of CLT properties, 1/3 would be partners, that is funders, city officials, technical resource people, and 1/3 would be representatives from the community at large. Our work with Habitat for Humanity demonstrates one of our successful efforts to find partners and share what we've learned. I respectfully request your help in delivering on Mr. Gentry's promise to our city. Mr. Gentry's promise, so our city is delivered a comprehensive evaluation of community land trust. In addition, the money we spent and the work we did will not be a total loss. Should you be unable to fulfill the promise made, then I would request that this letter be included in public comment at the October 22 meeting of the San Diego Housing Commission. This was obviously written some time ago. Should this item make the agenda, please include this letter in public information materials. Thank you very much, Richard Lawrence, former chair of the San Diego Community Land Trust and San Diego Affordable Housing Commission. P.S. After a very painful disagreement with the chair of our advisory board and fearing my reputation as a troublemaker, a good troublemaker, as all you should know, was hindering the success of the CLT, I resigned from the board, but never lost faith in what the CLD could do for San Diego. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Clovis. Yes, you can read the hand of the comments. Thank you very much. All right, next speaker is Joy Sunyana. Good morning, Joy.
I really appreciate that. Good morning, Joyce Anyata, District 3. First of all, 3 thank yous. First of all, thank you, Lisa Jones. You're so fabulous. She helped me network with a homeless person, and it's a beautiful thing. Thank you. And Mercy, I love you. I don't know, I can't say anything else except that I love her, and you're so lucky to have her. And then security, you get a B+ this morning, because we tried a bit of a new thing, and it worked well. It was a little bumpy, but it's working, so thank you for that. Okay, here's my topic. California Assembly Member Chris Ward, District 78, is part of the team on California Bill AB 799. The next hearing date at committee is next month on August 14th. Here's what he said in the June issue of the Downtown News, and I quote, "Would set consequences for entities failing to meet housing goals, including potentially reallocating HAP, that's HAP, funds to another entity within the same region. It would also streamline administrative burdens and local systems while ensuring that more detailed information is made available to the public to improve transparency and oversight." End of quote. The substance of Bill AB, that's Apple Boy 799, is solid and needed. I support this bill strongly, and I love that HAP is interwoven into that bill coming forward. So I'm going to be following that bill, and I just wanted to put that out there that I think it's going to be valuable for all of us, and be supportive of your work for everybody. So thank you for listening, and I'll be talking more later on things. So thank you so much. Love to all.
Thank you very much, Joy. Good to see you this morning. Okay, no further public comment speaker slips. Non-agenda item speaker slips have been submitted. So we will move next to Scott Marshall. Yes.
So the Housing Commission received a written statement from SCOMPA, which was directed to the Board of Directors, and a copy of that has been provided to each of you this morning when we received it. SCOMPA requested an accommodation for us to read the statement into the record because they have a disability and would not be able to be here in person to provide that statement. So I'll read that into the record now. Board of Directors, I am bringing to your immediate attention the pattern of violations of fair housing laws that I have experienced while participating in the housing programs administered by the San Diego Housing Commission, SDHC. As a member of a protected class, being an elderly disabled Hispanic woman, and recognized as a Woman of the Year in California for my service in 2021, I find it essential to advocate not only for myself, but also on behalf of the many other participants who are facing similar challenges. 1, SDHC concealed my rights under the Violence Against Women Act mandated by PL 102-322. SDHC's administrative analyst ignored my questions, leaving me with no choice but to navigate the situation alone. 2, the unilateral termination of my voucher by SDHC without notice in an attempt to leave me homeless constitutes a violation of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. 3, the withholding of my hearing package infringed upon my Fifth Amendment due process rights, arriving only 5 days before the hearing, providing inadequate time to present crucial information. Additionally, my requests for the name and contact information of the hearing officer remain unanswered. 4, refusing me access to my records violates the Freedom of Information Act, despite multiple attempts to communicate with Ms. Bell, VP of Rental Assistance, and CEO Jeff Davis. I have not received my records for 2 months, significantly hindering my ability to review and advocate for my case in violation of Section 109 Housing Act of 1974. Despite prompt email openings indicated by my tracking system, I have not received any response suggesting a pattern of non-professional conduct within SDHC, even with Congressman Steve Padilla's involvement. 5, denied a reasonable accommodation request contravening Titles 2 and 3 Americans with Disabilities Act 1990. Despite providing a doctor's note supporting my request, it was denied within 2 days and no alternative or offer of appeal was afforded, subjecting me to discrimination. 6, discrimination and harassment during in-person interactions at SDHC on Ruffin Road in 2020. I felt mistreated, subjected to racial profiling by Supervisor Ms. Arms, infringing on the California Housing Act. My many requests for a different service coordinator and supervisor were ignored, unaddressed. 7, as an elderly individual, I was excluded from decision-making processes that affected my well-being. When I requested a continuance through Director Manuel Galvin, there was no response, causing severe panic and anxiety. After 6 days, I received a response with the word final underlined, which felt intimidating and threatening. I have documentation for all incidents. Many others face similar challenges, and we gather evidence to show violation patterns. We seek guidance on reporting to HUD's Office of Inspector General or HUD's Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity Office. Discrimination, harassment, and indifference must not be tolerated in Housing Services Administration. We urge the board to take prompt and comprehensive action to rectify these violations. Kindly respond to our complaint within 14 days, providing reasonable accommodations. Signed, S. Compa. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. All right, seeing no further non-agenda public comments, we will move to commissioner comments. Good morning, my fellow commissioners. Vice Chair Clemner, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to ask Lisa to come up again this morning, and I started this last month, and we'll continue this month. So the 3 questions, you got a little more time to prepare this time than last time. 1, what is our average number of beds available at the start of each day for the past month?
Generally around 25. We're at a very high occupancy rate right now. Single adults are closer to around 98, 97, 99% occupancy, and over the system in general, 97%. So.
Thank you. And what time of day were those available beds full by on average?
As a rule, they're generally full before noon.
And lastly, what percentage of people who were seeking shelter accommodations received it over the past month?
So in the month of June, we had 1,298 referrals. 404 referrals were placed or completed, so it's a 31% completion rate.
Thank you very much. That's all I've got for you. And so just the running comment, obviously, is that we do not have enough shelter available for those who are actively seeking it as of right now. So thank you.
Yeah, need very much outweighs the availability. We've also added this to the monthly reports that come out on a monthly basis, so this is available for our public as well.
Wonderful. Really appreciate that, and I'm sure that the public does as well.
All right. Any further comments from my fellow commissioners?
Thank you, Chair Mitchell. I have just been noticing that there have been some complaints about vouchers being canceled prior to, through no fault of the voucher holder. In other words, the apartment complex that is required to, or the landlord who's required to renew the vouchers. And so I'm curious as to what those statistics are, and if there's a way that there could be a stop hold, because if somebody is a voucher holder and they've done all the things in order to renew their voucher, but it's the landlord who's, quite frankly, taking the largest benefit, the financial benefit of having a voucher holder rent the unit, isn't providing, doing their work, then is there a way that we can prevent the voucher from being canceled if it's due to no fault of the voucher holder? So, request.
Okay. So Jeff Davis, we will come back with I think it would be important information for the board to hear that, the information about the number of canceled vouchers. I think what gets lost is we know that we have a number of vouchers out there. We know the waiting list is long. So is the canceled voucher situation happening more often, and what are the numbers? Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. We'll certainly have a report for you at the next meeting. I would just make the statement that it's not the voucher that would be canceled, it's the lease that would be canceled. We don't always find out the reasons. Sometimes the tenants just ask for the ability, ask for their information for how to move and proceed and don't tell us the reasons, but we will look at the data that we have and report back.
Thank you. All right, we've reached a point in the agenda where it is going to be a pleasure for all of us to recognize a colleague who decided to retire from this discussion for the time being. And I can't knock this person for retiring. I mean, she was excellent at the job, and that is Ms. Stephanie Benvenuto, who has joined us this morning. She is. I'm going to ask her to step to the podium so that everybody can see who she is, so that when we shower her with praise, she will. Everybody will know who it is. Stephanie, this morning it is a pleasure to express our appreciation for you and your work on the commission for 6 years. 3 of those as chair. You were on the commission during a time when there was a transition, when it wasn't just about housing, but it became more about homelessness. A lot of conversations, a difficult time in the midst of chaos and COVID. And what I loved about you throughout the process was that you were always asking questions. You were always upbeat about the job that the Housing Commission was doing and needed to do even better, and you were always encouraging. I think that there's something that to be said for people in the public policy space. Public policy can be a little heavy. It can at times be a little bit disappointing. But in your instance, I always found your enthusiasm about getting the job done and doing what was best for San Diegans was always infectious and appreciated. And so it is with great honor that we have you back this morning. I think we promised that you'll be signing autographs a little later this afternoon. If you could just sign quicker than the last time, that'd be great, because it did take a while and security complained. So Stephanie, in all honesty, we will miss you here at the San Diego Housing Commission. Again, your impact, you may not want to acknowledge it, but your impact has been fantastic, and it will linger here for a long time. And we're all driven to be better because we all watched you. So we have a little another something for your desk, an appreciation of your leadership and public service to the San Diego Housing Commission, Ms. Stephanie Benvenuto. Go standing, Stephanie?
Yeah, I
use the mic.
I am actually, I found myself very nervous when you were talking, and that's very abnormal for me. Thank you guys, just thank you. This was I crying? What did you do? What did you guys do when I left? Everybody cries now? This was an enormous privilege, one that I did not think I deserved when I got appointed, which is maybe a nerdy thing to think. I'm so proud to be affiliated with any of you. Really, what you do, from the person who buys the light bulbs, to the person who does the outreach, to the math that Colin does, I think. I'm not really sure still. It is a tangible impact on the community, and like I said, this is just a huge honor, and I'm so bummed I did my makeup today. Thank you guys. I will be ever present because I think the kids say I stan you. I'm just going to be a lifelong fan, and I'm always rooting for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. All right. We will now move on, and you know, Stephanie, you know, I will say this, that you know, when you talk about it was an honor, I think we all feel that way, and we will always all share that same thought, that this is an honor to try and really do what's right for the people who need the support in San Diego. And so, again, it's just great to see you here this morning. I will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is, I believe, Mr. Davis, your CEO report.
Well, thank you. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. And I just have to say also thank you, Stephanie. It's been an absolute privilege and joy working with you and admiring you as you were up here. Thank you for all your service. On June 29th, 3 affordable housing developments celebrated their groundbreaking. When they are completed, these developments will provide more than 300 affordable rental apartments in Claremont. Vice Chair Klumpner represented the Housing Commission at this event. Additional speakers included California State Treasurer Fiona Ma, San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria, City Council Member Dr. Jennifer Campbell, County Board of Supervisor Chair Nora Vargas, the developer Chelsea Investment Corporation, and others. The Messina Senior Apartments, Modica Family Apartments, and Taormina Family Apartments are being built on the site of the former Sheriff's Crime Lab. The Housing Commission awarded development loans to support the Messina and Modica apartments. We also awarded 8 rental housing vouchers each to the Messina and Taormina developments. Financing for these developments also included recycled multifamily housing revenue bonds. These recycled bonds are possible because of the Housing Commission's innovative collaboration with the California Housing Finance Agency. Some exciting news here. The state budget that Governor Gavin Newsom signed on June 27th included funding allocated to the Housing Commission specifically for 2 programs. This is the first time in the agency's history that the state budget has included specific funds allocated directly to the Housing Commission. Our policy team met with the offices of state lawmakers from San Diego to advocate for these funds. I want to give kudos to Molly Weber and her team for this really exciting achievement. And as a side note, as most of you know, Molly is on maternity leave for the next few months. She gave birth to a son, her second, just over a week ago, and she and the baby are doing very well. $2 million will be coming to the Housing Commission to support our pilot project to increase density at the Housing Commission-owned Casa Colina affordable housing property. State Senate President Pro Tem Tony Atkins advocated for this funding. Casa Colina is a Housing Commission-owned property with 75 affordable units for seniors with low income. Due to the property reaching its year 15 tax credit period, Casa Colina makes sense to be the first property to pilot our efforts to increase density at our properties. This is part of the Housing Commission's broader preliminary efforts to explore increasing density throughout our real estate portfolio to provide additional housing. Housing Commission staff also continues to work with the County of San Diego regarding a parcel adjacent to Casa Colina. The goal is to establish terms for an agreement on the process to acquire and allow for the densification of the adjacent parcel as well. Our pilot project to increase density will support state policy priorities such as climate action and adaptation policies, including electrification. It will also provide opportunities for both preservation of existing affordable housing units and the creation of middle-income housing. In addition, the state budget allocated $750,000 to the Housing Commission for the multidisciplinary outreach team here in San Diego. This funding will enable the program to increase services to more individuals experiencing homelessness. State Assembly member Brian Mainshine championed this funding. The multidisciplinary outreach program serves individuals and families who are among the most vulnerable people experiencing unsheltered homelessness in the city. The Housing Commission contracts with PATH to operate the program, and PATH subcontracts with Father Joe Villages. The team includes a nurse practitioner, outreach specialist, a medical assistant, peer support specialist, and a substance abuse counselor. Program staff members spend an average of 20 hours per week per engaged individual. To date, the program has served 13 individuals. 12 people are currently enrolled in the program, and 2 have obtained housing. Staff members build rapport to establish a successful case management relationship. They also work to help individuals achieve housing stability and address basic health quality of life issues. The Housing Commission participated in the development of the county-led Leave No Veteran Homeless initiative, which launched on July 6th. This initiative aims to achieve what is known as functional zero in veteran homelessness in 15 months. Functional zero essentially means that the number of veterans experiencing homelessness each month is less than the number of unhoused veterans who obtain housing each month. One of the major project tracks and objectives for this initiative is known as the Housing Line of Effort. Housing Commission staff have helped develop the action items and are co-leading this line of effort. These include staff for our Housing First San Diego plan and the Community Action Plan on Homelessness, with support from our Rental Assistance Division. The initiative's website, noveteranhomeless.org, provides more information about the initiative, how landlords can rent to a veteran experiencing homelessness, and access to other resources. In addition to the Housing Commission, agencies involved with this initiative include the County of San Diego, the City of San Diego, the Regional Task Force on Homelessness, the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, 211 San Diego, the City of Oceanside, and homelessness service providers. At the board's meeting last month, I let you know that the Housing Commission was launching a survey of residential renters throughout the City of San Diego. That survey concluded earlier this week. Approximately 4,000 people completed the online survey. To raise awareness about the survey, we shared a flyer and suggested social media posts in English and Spanish to City Council offices, community organizations, and additional stakeholders, asking them to encourage San Diego renters to participate in the survey. We also provided links to the survey in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese on our website homepage. And we emailed information about the survey to 67,000 people on our rental assistance waiting list. The survey responses we received are an important part of our study to identify the trends and the landscape related to evictions in the City of San Diego. We're consulting with HRNA on this project. HRNA is a public policy firm with more than 40 years of experience in real estate and economic development, and the study is anticipated to conclude in October. And I'll continue to update this board about the study as we have more information to share. We were notified on Wednesday of this week that the Housing Commission once again received the highest recognition from the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada. This is the 15th consecutive year that the Housing Commission has earned the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. This honor recognizes the Housing Commission's fiscal year 2022 annual comprehensive financial report. An impartial panel determined that our report met the program standards, including a spirit of full disclosure to clearly communicate our financial story. I congratulate our Financial Services Department for this great recognition. And this concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I'll just echo your applause on the financial award and acknowledgement, and I want to extend great tremendous amount of applause for the team on the state budget award. It's hard to believe that's our first, but it's the first of many to come, because I know that this team is now eager to get started in next year. But it's important. It's an important acknowledgement of the work that this organization does. And as Stephanie said, and I think we all share this, that we appreciate everything that this team does, because it's so important now. And I think the state was recognizing that, as well as the state delegation. So thank you. All right. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting and special meeting of June 15th. No speaker slips have been submitted regarding the minutes. So do I have any commissioners? Do the commissioners have any changes of the minutes, or do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Klumpner for approval. Second by Commissioner Vasquez. All those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing any abstentions? Seeing none, the motion carries unanimously on a 4-0 vote. As I said at the start of today's meeting, we're proposing that the following items for the regular meeting agenda be moved to the consent agenda for today, and that is item 100, the amendment of the bylaws of the Housing Development Partners of San Diego and the HDP Mason Housing Corporation, and item 101, the ratification of the amendment to the Security Services Agreement for Valley Vista Apartments. I don't think we have any speaker slips on those, so I think we are free and clear to move on to. No speaker slips have been submitted for items 100 and 101. This concludes the public comment period for these items. Commissioners, do you have any comments on the consent agenda, or do we have a motion on the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, could we approve the meeting minutes for the special meeting? I believe that was
We-
on the agenda. Or did we do both?
We did both at the same time, so no problem. That's fine. Unless legal tells us we can't, we did them both at the same time. Okay.
I need to approve the agenda.
The consent. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda by Commissioner Vasquez. Second? Second by Commissioner Jackson. We have a second by Commissioner Jackson. So there is a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda for today. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries unanimously 4-0. Next up is item 102 on the regular meeting agenda, and this is the Parker Kier ground lease renewal. We will take public comments after the staff presentation, and our Vice President of Asset Management, Emmanuel Areño, will present the next items. Emmanuel, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
The Housing Commission acquired the Parker Kier Apartments from the Port of San Diego in 1991. The property is a three-story structure containing 33 affordable rental housing units. 19 units are studios and 14 are one-bedroom units. There is also one unrestricted manager's unit, and the property was built in 1908. In 1992, the Housing Commission completed essential rehabilitation to correct safety hazards and repair basic systems. The rehabilitation utilized an interest-free forgivable loan from the Redevelopment Agency of the City of San Diego, or RDA. As a condition of the RDA loan, the Housing Commission recorded an agreement affecting real property. This agreement required the units at the property to be restricted to individuals with drug, alcohol, and substance abuse issues, or others in need of services-enriched housing. It also restricted the affordability of these units to households earning up to 50% of the area median income, or AMI. These restrictions will remain in place until February 2026. In 2012, the City of San Diego made an additional grant for the rehabilitation work at the property in the approximate amount of $2.5 million. The grant consisted of federal home program funds. The home program grant agreement and declaration of covenants, conditions, and restrictions recorded on the property restricted the occupancy of 24 units at the following levels: 3 studios at 50% of AMI, 10 studios at 60% of AMI, 2 one-bedroom units at 50% of AMI, and 9 one-bedroom units at 60% of AMI. The home program restrictions are in place until July 2027, and the home restrictions do not apply to 10 units at the property. In 2013, HDP Parker Cure LLC, a California limited liability company, entered into a 10-year ground lease as the lessee with the Housing Commission as the lessor of the property. Housing Development Partners, or HDP, is the Housing Commission's nonprofit affiliate. The property was leased to HDP solely and exclusively for the purposes of management and operation of the property. The 10-year ground lease will end on August 31st, 2023. HDP has successfully operated the property with the support of a third-party property management company. Staff recommends extending the ground lease for an additional 15 years at the current ground lease rent of 4.5% of total gross revenue and for HDP to continue the property's operations. The property provides 11 units specifically to residents qualified under the St. Paul's Program for All-Inclusive Care for the Elderly, or PACE. St. Paul's PACE is a health program designated to help seniors with chronic illnesses continue living safely and successfully in their own home. The remaining 22 units consist of residents from two Mental Health Services Act support programs, IMPACT and CenterStar. IMPACT is a model for care providing treatment and rehabilitation as well as case management services for people with mental illnesses. CenterStar's program offers 24-hour, community-based treatment for individuals with a criminal justice background who have been diagnosed with a severe and persistent mental illness. The Coordinated Entry System, or CES, will continue to be utilized to identify potential residents upon a match to a unit and/or service provider. Staff recommends that the Housing Commission Board take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on this slide. This concludes staff's presentation. We're available for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ariano. Excellent job. We will move on to the speaker request forms, and we have one public comment from Joy Senyata. Joy?
Joy Senyata, District 3. Chair, I'm going to go off point for just 30 seconds and thank Mr. Davis because that was a fabulous report. And congratulations. And Stephanie, you can join the crying caucus. The City Council has a crying caucus. A few members. I'm a member. So we welcome you to consider that. And I will miss you and thank you very much for your patience with me over the years. Really love to you. Okay, these Parker Cure people, I talked to them this morning. They're lovely, wonderful people, two men. Thank you. And before I say my comments, one of the things I heard this morning is they really are a pioneer in supportive services. And isn't that amazing? I guess the only sad part of that is that, way back when they got it rolling, and here we are now, and how far have we gotten? So we need to do better, and we're trying to do better with supportive services, so thank you all for that. So 16 more years of affordable housing is appreciated. Thank you, San Diego Housing Commission, for staying with this for over 30 years. Even 33 units is great, with help for the elderly and with supportive services. So again, as I said, thank you so much for being pioneers on this. And please keep us rolling forward. We need so much more. And so great. So please approve this ground lease and love to all.
Thank you, Ms. Senyata. We have no further speaker forms on this item, so I will move to commissioner comments or questions. Commissioner Vasquez.
Thank you, Chair Mitchell. So first I'd like to say congratulations to the Parker Career for preserving a property from 1908. I hear too many times in this space that property owners will claim after 50 years of a covenant existing that all of a sudden the property is dilapidated, we need to tear it down, we need to build new fair market value property in that area, and they remove units. So this is an example of how we can preserve property regardless of how old it is, and I'm grateful that these affordable housing units had been preserved and are continuing to be preserved. My only question is, to that point, the fact that I'd like to know how much the current leaseholders have invested in the property apart from the grant that they got from the federal government, because that's also a requirement. I think that people that are managing the property use their own funds in order to reinvest in the properties that they're leasing from the San Diego Housing Commission and the City of San Diego. So if you could speak to that, that would be great.
Sure, happy to. So HDP, as an affiliate of the San Diego Housing Commission, is completely vested on the long-term preservation of the property. On the HDP side, we work really closely with a third-party management company to ensure the successful operation of the property, and that it starts with the financial performance, with the operations from the maintenance and upkeep of the property, and also making sure that there's a strong partnership with the service providers. We have 3 of them at the Parker Key property to ensure the services are supporting the need and addressing the intent of the residents to have them be successful. I would add Parker Key is a very successful property. We hardly ever had any turnover. The residents have been in place for quite a bit of time, and we witnessed the success of the program and from when they first came in to where they're at now, and that's the result of strong partnerships between HDP, the service provider, and the management company on site.
Thank you.
All right. Any further comments or questions? I'll just add before you move to a motion is that I do think this is a successful project. It's a good example of the importance of supportive services. I think we've talked about the fact that there's caseworkers that are assigned to each resident, and that you have a mixed population. And I agree with Commissioner Vasquez. I think it's important that the care be put into the facility itself, because too often in society people envision a facility like this being run down, dilapidated, and a drag on the neighborhood. And so I think that it's always important that that you do have that partnership that is enabling residents to live safely, securely, but also in a place that is well taken care of. So, all right, no further comments. I will entertain a motion in a second. So moved. Second, motion by Commissioner Vasquez, second by Commissioner Jackson. And we will move to all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes unanimously, 4-0. The next item on the agenda is item 103. Thank you, Emmanuel. The next item on the agenda is item 103, and this is the Loan Modification, Preliminary Bond Authorization, and Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, or TEFRA, for those paying attention, the public hearing. We will take public comments after the staff presentation, and our Vice President of Multifamily Housing Finance. It's been a while since Jennifer, since we've seen, I thought we'd go have a meeting with you and Colin not being at the table. That was crazy. It just was, I was starting to get nervous. So Jennifer and Colin, the floor is yours. Please begin when you are ready. You want me to bring you a coin? Okay.
All right. Good morning, Chair Mitchell and Commissioners. I'm with Colin Miller, Senior Vice President of Housing Finance and Property Management. The item before you today is a request to take the initial steps to issue tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds and hold a TEFRA hearing, as well as modify the existing Housing Commission loan to facilitate the acquisition and rehabilitation of Bandar Salam apartments. Bandar Salam apartments consist of 67 affordable units, which are a mix of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5-bedroom units, plus 1 unrestricted manager unit. The property is located at 3810 Winona Avenue in the City Heights Community Plan Group of Council District 9. It is currently rent restricted as the Housing Commission has a loan on the property from 2000. A new allocation of bonds and rolling forward the Housing Commission loan will preserve the property's affordability status for a new 55-year term for the 67 units at 45 to 50% of San Diego's area median income. Regarding proximity to public transit, there are a few bus stops nearby. Further into the presentation, we'll have a slide with the bus stops depicted. The developer of the project is Community Housing Works. They are an experienced and award-winning nonprofit developer and own more than 4,700 units within California and Texas. Services for the tenants is and will continue to be provided by the developer and will include community activities, health and wellness classes, a year-round service coordinator, and after-school tutoring. Here's a site map of the development. It is located at Council District 9 at 3810 Winona Avenue, which is represented by the red pin that is circled on the slide. Throughout the next few slides, we'll show the proximity to transit, grocery stores, and schools. First is transit. As shown by the blue markers, bus stops are located near the site. On this slide, the proximity to grocery stores is shown. As shown by the red markers, there are options close to the site as well. And lastly, this slide shows the distance of schools. As shown by the red markers, there are also options for schools nearby. The total development cost of the project will be approximately $21.4 million, which equates to $315,000 per unit. Notable sources of funding include a bond finance loan and 4% tax credits, an existing Housing Commission loan from 2000, a seller carryback note, and a deferred developer fee. No new Housing Commission loan funds are proposed for this development. The property is currently comprised of 16 one-bedroom, 30 two-bedroom, 17 three-bedroom, 2 4-bedroom, and 2 5-bedroom units at 45 to 50% of San Diego area median income. Rental range from $1,240 to $1,691 per month for the units. Should this be approved today, the developer will apply to select for a bond allocation by September 6th. Should the developer receive an allocation of bonds at the December 6th meeting, we anticipate bringing this item back for final bond-related approvals in April 2024. At this time, in addition to the Housing Commission Board approval, the project will also be brought before the Housing Authority for approval in May 2024. The developer expects to close construction financing and then begin construction in June 2024 and complete construction in April 2025. Did I go the wrong way? What happened? Oh, I can't go backward. Okay. Here are a few pictures of the property's current exterior. You're considering approvals to take the preliminary steps to issue up to $13 million in tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds. Approval of the Bond Issuance and Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, TEFRA, resolution does not commit the Housing Authority to issue bonds. The bonds would not constitute a debt of the city. If bonds are ultimately issued for the project, the bonds will not financially obligate the city, the Housing Authority, or the Housing Commission because security for the repayment of the bonds will be limited to specific private revenue sources of the project. Staff recommends that the board take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on the following slides. This concludes the presentation. Colin and I, as well as representatives from the developer, are available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Coiter. I have 27 questions, and I'm trying to figure out which order I'm going to put them in. So if you could just bear with me for a moment. We have one speaker slip that has been submitted for item 103, and that is Joyce Sunyata.
Joyce Sunyata, District 3, thank you so much. I'm used to these hearings, these TEFRA hearings, being at City Council with the, of course, the Housing Commission. So I just wanted to say that with the shifting of the responsibility, I believe, over to all of you, most of it, I think that it just shows that our Housing Commission really is our gem. And I just so appreciate all that you do. And the TEFRA committee, the TEFRA meetings have always been in my heart. And I can't fully explain it because I don't really understand bonds. But I do know that that this stuff is really important, and thank you for doing it. So the Bandar Salam Apartments, Tefra, I'm a warm body, and I think we need more warm bodies here, the public coming to these, and that's why, even though sometimes I'm not quite sure what I have to say on the bonds and all that, I think it's important that the public shows up and says that we're here, we're listening, and we appreciate you all so much. So I loved when you used the word preserve those units, because most of you know that preservation is so critical, and that's one of my babies. So thank you for using the word preserve. And transit and all those extra benefits for the tenants is so appreciated. So please approve and authorize all of this. Thank you, and love to all.
Thank you, Joy. Comments, questions from Commissioner Vasquez?
My apologies. Apparently, I have a lot to say this morning.
No?
So two things. Thank you for giving us the maps of the individual, the bus stops, where the schools are located, and the grocery stores. I would like to see a map with all of them combined, because then it gives us a good idea of how the residents are able to commute from their units to school to the grocery store, and I don't have a photographic memory, so it's really hard for me to lay those over otherwise. Additionally, and this will be at the risk of being redundant, a continued question of mine. I think it's beholden of all property owners to invest in their own property before, and especially when they're asking for taxpayer money in order to provide a service to the community, because a lot of times that burden seems to be shifted onto the taxpayers through the San Diego Housing Commission or through some type of nonprofit or other nonprofit organization. So my question for you is, how much has the owner of the property invested in these units over the course of the last 10 years that they've had the loan?
Thanks for your question. So I need the representative from CHW to tell us exactly how much they've spent over the last 20 years. What I can tell you is that the developer is putting over $7 million of their money back into the deal through a seller carryback note. So they are putting a substantial piece. That's almost about 30% of the total development cost. So CHW is coming to the table with a very sizable contribution to the project. The project financing, as well as deferring developer fee.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions? I'll just add this, two things. One, I will echo what Commissioner Vasquez said. I think preservation has to become a real a conversation that everybody in San Diego understands. It is something that, we're having this conversation about the cost of building, and I appreciate, Jennifer, you mentioned $315,000 a unit. For those of us up here who've become very, very weary as we get projects, and Colin, you've seen this, projects coming in at $650,000 a key. No one should feel comfortable that we're seeing this incredible price escalation. And so preservation is going to be really important. Preservation and enhancement and upgrades, again, public perception, right? If you're going to live in one of these properties, you should actually feel like it's being cared for and that you're living in a place that that anyone would want to live in. And I saw the thumbs up, I think that's the most important thing. It's the right thing to do. And so, Commissioner Vasquez, I appreciate you asking that question about the partnership. It's really easy to be a partner with us and not invest any of your own funds to make sure a home is really a home, a well-kept home. But this investment, I appreciate your comments, Colin. And in closing, Colin, I think there's something important, because we're getting this question a lot in the public space about per unit cost. And everybody some people seem to be saying that, well, we can get units at $250,000 a key. Realistically, Colin, answer the question.
Yeah. Is that new construction? I mean, if you're building out east where the land is a lot cheaper, maybe. Are you building studios? This property has up to 5-bedroom units. So this property provides something that we're not seeing very often in the market.
Exactly.
And so to say that someone could build a $250,000 unit that has 5 bedrooms, I would love to see that. I'm from Ohio. As the accent probably comes through.
Yeah.
I look back there every now and then to see what property is going for back in Ohio, which has lower costs. And we're seeing they're not even doing that.
Yeah, Columbus isn't building 5-bedroom yet. No. right?
Not at all.
No, I don't
So
think you're
it's-
seeing it in Columbus. I don't think you're seeing it in Winchester, Kansas. I don't think you're seeing it in Abilene, Texas. The reality is that we've reached a point in this market where 315,000 a key for this type of project is a really good price, and we encourage more of those. So, Vice Chair Klempner, I knew I'd get you started.
Just to jump in a little bit more on this. So yeah, I really like the fact that 49 of the 67 units here are 2 and 3 bedroom units, or two, 3 and 4 bedroom units, which we know we see in our new construction. There's less of that. If my recollection here is on track, it's a bit harder to build those right now. And then I appreciate the per unit breakdown here, and then the comment about the 7 million that the owners are putting in. So if is my math correct here, this comes out that our bond here is about 191,000. Would it be fair to say that's the public investment in this property?
I'm supposed to be good at math according to
Steph.
No, I mean, don't let Stephanie down because you left your
I
calculator
think
at
that's the
home.
number of units divided, or it's the 13 million divided by the number of units comes out. Yeah. So just to further put a finer point on this, to extend the affordability for 55 years for majority 2 to 4 bedroom units and have it be under 200,000 per door. I mean, that is going to be a screaming deal for the public, especially if we're thinking about, 20, 30 years from now and what prices will look like then. The fact that we've secured this at now. And then also, I wanted to also kind of point out how important, because I love seeing the new construction. I mean, we know that we have a volume problem with the inventory in affordable housing. And so I love to see when we have new things that didn't exist coming into existence. But it's very important, I think, for us to also recognize the value of not just maintaining the affordability, but maintaining the quality of the units. I know the chair and others, when we go to these groundbreakings and ribbon cuttings, I've been making a real point to emphasize for the community that these are benefits. That the new housing coming in is a benefit to the community. It's allowing people who have service sector jobs to live closer to where they work potentially. It's allowing people who would have to go very far east and commute every day and be away from their families to be closer. It's allowing people to have housing security when they would otherwise have to worry about the risk of homelessness. Those are all things that enhance communities, but part of that pitch that we need to make to communities about the value of adding affordable housing is for us to show that we maintain it well and that it fits with the community, that it does not change the character of the community in a negative way, that it actually is a benefit to the character of the community. So this looks like a very well-maintained property. I haven't toured it, but from the photos and everything, it looks well-maintained right now. It is dated, and I assume it has a lot of maintenance that needs to be done given the age. So, in addition to the affordability and those family units available, I think it's wonderful that District 9 is going to have a property with all of these upgrades, and that we are playing our part in trying to maintain the high standard of the housing as well. So, anyway, that's all my comments. I'd be happy to make the motion.
All right, we have a motion by Vice Chair Klempner. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Jackson. All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Item 103. Thank you very much. Again, Jennifer, Colin, it's good to see you guys. I thought for a minute that we weren't, but it was great. Oh, you're not going anywhere, right? All right, that's right. I forgot. You're here for the next one. As I say that, we move to item 104. This is the preliminary bond authorization of TEFRA hearing for the Seabreeze Garden Apartments. We will take public comments after the staff presentation. Jennifer and Colin, the floor is yours once again.
All right, good morning again. So the item before you today is a request to take the initial steps to issue tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds and hold a TEFRA hearing to facilitate the acquisition and rehabilitation of Seabreeze Gardens Apartments. Seabreeze Gardens Apartments consists of 267 affordable units, which are a mix of 2 and 3 bedroom units plus 1 unrestricted manager unit. The property is located at 4808 to 4888 Logan Avenue in the Choyas Valley Community Plan Group, Council District 4. It is currently rent restricted from a 2008 bond issuance through the Housing Authority of the City of San Diego. While those bonds were repaid in 2021, the property's income restrictions remain in place. A new allocation of bonds will preserve the property's affordability status for a new 55-year term for the 267 units at 30 to 60% of San Diego's area median income. Regarding proximity to public transit, there are a few bus stops nearby, and we'll have a slide with the bus stops depicted. The developer of the project is Lincoln Avenue Capital. They are an experienced and award-winning developer and operate more than 22,000 affordable units across the United States. Services for the tenants is currently and will continue to be provided by the Pacific Housing, Inc. and will include community activities, health and wellness classes, a year-round service coordinator, and after-school programs. Here's a site map of the development. It is located east of the 805 at 4808 to 4888 Logan Avenue, which is represented by the red pin that's circled on the slide. Throughout the next few slides, we'll show the proximity to transit, grocery stores, and schools. So first is transit. As shown by the blue markers, there are bus stops located near the site. And on this side...
Jennifer, can you go back for a minute to the previous slide? I think there's the bus stops.
Oh, that's schools.
You did schools, yeah. You went back quite. Yeah.
It's a new clicker.
It's a new
right
clicker.
Here, it's a new clicker.
Okay, there it is. So there's a little, right on the, if you kind of see kitty corner left, that's literally right outside the parking lot.
Okay.
Of the apartments.
Yeah. It's the small. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. There's one across the street. There's one across the street too.
Yes,
Yeah,
okay.
Correct.
Two.
We'll make it bigger for the next presentation.
Yeah. My readers only work up close, so when I'm looking back there, I'm looking at Lisa and see if she's nodding. If she's not, then I'm
And we'll make it all into one slide too next time. Okay, this one is grocery stores. Shown by the red markers, there are some grocery stores, and as you can see, there's little red markers with the grocery carts. I don't know. And then this one's the proximity to schools, and there are a few options for schools nearby as well. The total development cost of the project will be approximately $152.2 million, which equates to $568,000 per unit. Notable sources of funding include tax-exempt and taxable bond finance loans, 4% tax credits, a seller carryback note, and a deferred developer fee. No Housing Commission loan funds are proposed for this development. The property is currently comprised of 102 bedroom and 167 three-bedroom units at 50 to 60% of San Diego area median income. With the new bond allocation, the property is proposing to deepen its income restrictions to include 30%. So the units will range from 30 to 60% of San Diego area median income. Rents will range from $930 to $2,150 per month for all the units. All the affordable units at the property are currently under a Section 8 contract administered directly by HUD Los Angeles. Should this be approved today, the developer will apply to SIDLAC for a bond allocation by September 6th. Should the developer receive an award of bonds at the December 6th meeting, we anticipate bringing this item back for final bond-related approvals in April 2024. At this time, in addition to Housing Commission Board approval, the project will also be brought before the Housing Authority for approval in May 2024. The developer expects to close construction financing and then begin construction in June 2024 and complete construction in December 2025. Here are a couple pictures of the property's exterior. You are considering approvals to take the preliminary steps to issue up to $75 million in tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds. Approval of the Bond Issuance and Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, TEFRA, resolution does not commit the Housing Authority to issue bonds. The bonds will not constitute a debt of the city. If bonds are ultimately issued for the project, the bonds will not financially obligate the city, the Housing Authority, or the Housing Commission because security for the repayment of the bonds will be limited to specific private revenue sources of the project. Staff recommends that the board take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown in the following slides. This concludes the presentation. Colin and I, as well as representatives from the developer, are available to answer questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Comments, questions? I'm going to ask a question about, that kind of ties into what Vice Chair Klempner was talking about. Again, I do believe that I will always remember my very first hearing at the commission, and we had a little bit of an uproar because there was I'm going to go to speak public comments. I apologize. Let me hold on public on that. We have one public comment for item 104, and that is Joy Signata. Joy, the mic is yours. I apologize, Joy. I was getting ready to ask a question that I thought you would enjoy, but I apologize. You have the floor.
I accept your apology.
Yes.
And I don't know how early in the morning you have to get up to keep up with you, Chair. But I have a feeling
my family tends to ask me to leave the house early, right? Yeah.
I'm a night owl. So I don't know that we could be married.
Yeah, no, probably not. Probably not. I'm up early. So,
okay.
Yes.
So, but that's great.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you so much, Joy Signata, District 3. I'll be short. Seabreeze Apartments, again, a tougher hearing, so thank you for that. Wow, $75 million. I can hardly get my mind around that, but that's fabulous. One time, when Father Joe's was approving that was coming through for I think it's called St. Teresa's project, and I looked at, I wanted to understand funding a little better, and I was blown away by how complex and how many hands had to be handing out money and helping us with that project. So, this to me seems like the frosting at the top, but really as it rolls through, it is so complex. I don't know how you do it all. It's a miracle, and I'm so grateful every single day for our affordable housing. Hey, thank you on District 4 for the last item, and I believe this is District 9. Those districts really needed help with housing, and I know the city council members are thrilled with that. So 267 units are great, 55 years is great. Please approve and authorize. Thank you and love to all.
Thank you, Joy. I'll just make one. I have one question, and this goes back to something I think you've heard kind of a theme this morning about being an asset. I remember my first hearing for the commission, and there was a discussion about a project in Scripps Ranch that was going to be built for teachers. Colin, you remember that? And the sentiment was, we don't want that kind of project here, and even though it was for teachers. And again, I go back to the general sense that people believe that when you build these projects that they're going to be run down, dilapidated, and ruin the value of the community and not be an asset, as Vice Chair Klempner said. I recently saw this with people that I was talking to that I actually consider friends, and they were worried about a project being built near them because they had this perception issue. When you use the word rehab, Jennifer, that it's I think there's a question about the definition of rehab. Modernizing units, so the units were built way back when. You're bringing up the speed. I think it'd be really important for us to have a future meeting, talk about what goes into the rehab process. What are the requirements that we put when we're going to use the word rehab? I see the picture up on the screen here, and there's when you say rehab, people might wonder, well, what does that mean? Are they painting the building? Are they planting more greenery? There's a big push for trees. And canopies, there's all these things. So I think what we probably need to do is better define rehab so that people watching and listening understand that it's not just the interior modernization, but it's exterior. And what are our requirements? I do think it's important that we kind of have a standard as the commission that rehab isn't just a paint job, right? I mean, as I often say, you can repaint a car and not really do anything under the hood, and that car is going to run the way it's running, and you're going to be like, it looks great, but it doesn't drive well. So,
yeah, thanks for your comment. I think what I'd like to point out, so to give you an idea of what we do when reviewing a project, what the developer provides us is what's called a comprehensive needs assessment or a physical needs assessment, and that gives a complete rundown of everything of the property, building systems, landscaping, et cetera. The useful life that remains of those systems, when they need to be replaced, and the cost to do that. And so we look to the developer, we do our own internal review, Jennifer and her team, to say what is that cost to do that work, and what is the developer actually proposing to do, and also to make sure the funding is there for the first year to the actual renovations, and then we look at the developer's 55-year cash flow, and we look at how much they're setting aside in replacement reserve. And the replacement reserve account is meant to fund as appliances need to be replaced or windows are broken, need to be fixed. That account covers those things, and so we look at, and Jennifer's team looks at that reserve account and how much is in that account each year, and when the comprehensive needs assessment or physical needs assessment assumes certain building systems need to get replaced. So we do that on every single transaction. We did that on this one. And then to speak a little bit to this project, there's a number of things that are being done. It's not just paint. There will be new luxury vinyl plank throughout the units, new light fixtures in the units, new appliances, new bathroom accessories. HVACs will be replaced. It's getting really hot, so I'm sure the residents will appreciate that. Full roof replacement across all the buildings, renovations to the clubhouse, playgrounds, and some FF&E for the clubhouse, or fixtures and other equipment for the clubhouse. All the full replacement of gutters, downspouts, and splash blocks. Given the rain we had at the beginning of the year, that's extremely important, especially with the roof. General landscaping and site work, restriping and resealing the parking lot. So this is a lot more than just painting the sides of the building.
Okay, thank you very much, Colin. I appreciate that, because I do think and I think it's going to be important that we define what rehab is going forward with projects. I appreciate your comment about the HVACs, because one of the things that has become a well-known and growing problem is we are seeing the temperatures get hotter and colder. I think the heat, is really a bigger concern nowadays, because especially in projects where you have seniors or people with medical conditions, the heat is debilitating, and so as we're looking at rehabs, I think it's important we note, that when that we should have this expectation that they're being upgraded with the rehabs. Sometimes you have units that don't have. Hard to believe there are units that don't have air conditioning in them, and so I'd love at a future meeting if you guys could give us a breakdown of the units of projects that don't have air conditioning, HVACs. And it is I've been watching the weather in Phoenix, and I always say the housing authority there must have a really difficult problem, because they've had 21 straight days of 110 or more. That is unbearable. And so, but again, it is getting hotter here. So again, good job on the presentation. I think it's a good project. We need to define rehab a little better when we're having these conversations. Yes, Commissioner Vasquez.
My generic question, how much has the developer invested into the property for rehab over the course of, leading up to this point, I guess?
Yeah, again, as far as the history of how long they've owned the project, so we'll have to go to the developer for what they've done the last 20 years. But as far as what they're putting into the project now, there's a $12.4 million seller carryback note. So they are putting in substantial. It's about, I think, 8 to 9% of the total development cost going back into the project.
Yeah. So, Colin, if you can come back to us to the commissioners with the last two projects of what's been put into the rehab of the units of the last decade.
Okay,
that'd be wonderful.
Under that ownership structure.
Under that ownership, yeah.
Sure, we can do that.
I think it's important that we know. I think Commissioner Vasquez's point is correct, that it's great that we have this discussion today and they do all of this work you're talking about, and then they don't spend any other time over the course of the next 15, 20 years. That would be a concern. So
yeah, and I think just to address that in a very general sense. So one of the beauties of the tax credit program is it's not just the Housing Commission looking at these projects over the life of the compliance period. There's also a tax credit investor, and that tax credit investor wants to make sure their investment is well maintained. And so there are a number of eyes looking at the project, making sure that things are being replaced when they need to be replaced. There are so it's more than just us, and so we can get the dollar amount that's been invested, but funds are invested every year in these projects, just like we do at the Housing Commission.
If I could just do a follow-up. My issue, again, is the fact that these projects are funded initially by taxpayer dollars, and then they have a tendency, especially in San Diego, a history of being ignored, and then right before the expiration of a covenant or the grant money being available, then they come to us and say, oh, these properties are dilapidated, we need to preserve them, or we're going to require that these properties be torn down and then replaced with fair market housing prices units, as well as affordable units. That's a general concern that I I've seen over the last 20 years. And so that's the reason why I want to know before, even if they're a current partner with us, I want to know what have they done to invest in their property, because they need to, if they don't have any buy-in into these units and they're just expecting it to be based off of the tax dollar funding, then that's unacceptable. They're in a business, they're making money. There's absolutely no reason why they shouldn't be investing in those units. And I understand that there are other people looking at these units, but I trust you guys. You guys are the ones who understand the plight, and on a daily basis, you guys are making the effort to provide affordable housing. I don't know these other people, but I trust the Housing Commission staff too. And so when you guys tell me, look, they have invested on a regular basis X amount of dollars to keep the property not just up to code, but up to having internet access, having, making sure the electric sockets aren't, where you plug something into the electric socket and it's not falling out because they've been updated. These kind of things matter, and just because they're affordable housing units and they're receiving tax dollars doesn't mean, to what Chair Mitchell mentioned, the developers and the owners of these projects shouldn't just be doing facelifts until they, until it gets to the point where they're dilapidated and they're going to lose their funding, and then they come back and ask for funds. So I want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence as commissioners to make sure we're asking those questions. So that will be a repeated question on my part. Thank you.
What I can just add to that, when there's a loan on the property, like with the prior one, we will do our compliance and make sure that the property is being up to par by doing a physical, go out there and do an assessment with an inspection and everything. And our team will kind of make sure that, everything on the loan side is being compliant within our documents and everything. So, and then we make sure that with any reserves that they're going to be drawing down for any type of, you're talking about like HVAC. If HVAC replacement, we will see what's going on in that realm. And then our team also goes out and does the inspection so we can make sure that everything's staying in line.
Thank you. I just, before I take the motion, I just say this, and I think Vice Chair Klempner and I both share this. There's a lot of conversation about development in one district in particular, District 6. And I think there's the better we are at communicating how we oversee projects of this nature, the easier it will be for the discussion. Because I think as a standalone, promises, unless. So I think we have a role in this discussion. So, all right. All that being said, is there a motion and a second? I'll entertain a motion in a second.
I move.
Motion by Commissioner Vasquez, second by Commissioner Jackson. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? No abstentions. The motion carries on unanimously 4-0. Okay, so we're going to go to item 106, and before what we're going to do is we're going to adjourn the regular meeting and reconvene in the special meeting for the presentation on item 106. And as I mentioned, we will hear this before the informational workshop. Item 106 is the approval of the sole source justification and the operating agreement with the Alpha Project to operate the City Family Shelter Program. We're going to take public comments after the staff presentation as usual. And Casey thought she'd be able to get away without being up on the stage, but no. Lisa Jones, our Executive Vice President of Strategic Initiatives, and Casey Snell, Vice President of Administration for Homelessness Initiatives, will present this item. And you know the drill. Please begin when ready.
All right. Good morning. We are presenting staff's recommendation to approve the sole source justification and operating agreement between the San Diego Housing Commission and Alpha Project for the Homeless to operate the City of San Diego's Family Shelter Program. The housing, clicker. Boy, I haven't done this for a while. I'm a little out of practice.
I know. I was going to say, Lisa, it's a new clicker just in case you didn't hear.
I'm going to blame everything on the clicker. All right. The Housing Commission has administered the contracts for the city's homeless shelters and services programs based on a memorandum of understanding between the Housing Commission and the city that first took effect on July 1st, 2010. As of July 1st, 2023, a Master Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, between the City and Housing Commission was executed. The MOU details the City's and the Housing Commission's roles and responsibilities in the oversight and administration of city-funded homelessness programs. The MOU includes reference to all program interventions that the Housing Commission administers on behalf of the City, including shelters. The City of San Diego's Family Shelter Program is replacing the existing Bridge Shelter serving families, which Father Joe's Villages has operated since 2017. As part of a plan to relocate the existing shelter for families and transition-aged youth from Golden Hall, the city identified the Travelodge site at 1801 Logan Avenue as the new location for families. Unfortunately, the Housing Commission and Father Joe's Villages were not able to come to mutually agreeable terms and conditions of service to allow for the transfer of family shelter services by Father Joe's from Golden Hall to the new facility. Therefore, the Housing Commission had to work quickly to secure a new operator to serve and support the families transitioning from Golden Hall to the new site, ensuring continuity of service. Alpha Project has been selected through a non-competitive procurement process to operate the Family Shelter Program at 1801 Logan Avenue. The Family Shelter Program supports the Community Action Plan on Homelessness for the City of San Diego and Strategic Priority Area Number 4 of the Housing Commission's Strategic Plan. The proposed actions before you today will allow the Housing Commission to enter into a non-competitive agreement with Alpha Project to operate the Family Shelter Program. The Family Shelter Program will provide 42 safe, low-barrier, non-congregate shelter accommodations for families experiencing homelessness in the City of San Diego. It will operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in the Barrio Logan community. The program will provide interim housing as well as stabilization and supportive services. Referrals will be facilitated through the Coordinated Shelter Intake Program, which the Housing Commission administers and runs. Eligible households include families with at least one child under 18 who are experiencing homelessness in the City of San Diego. Am I on slide 4? I can't see that. Okay, thanks. The city's Family Shelter Program will provide safe, low-barrier shelter and a diverse portfolio of supportive services. Supportive services will be aligned with Housing First, low-barrier, and trauma-informed principles and will include identifying and facilitating opportunities for diversion from shelter, housing-focused case management, including development of a housing plan and stabilization strategies, coordination with and referrals to county, state, and federal programs, as well as nonprofits and social services agencies, assistance in locating safe and affordable permanent or other long-term housing options, including housing interventions outside of the coordinated entry system, assistance with housing applications and supportive or subsidized housing paperwork, and advocacy for clients with prospective landlords. The Family Shelter Program will also provide basic shelter services for all enrolled households, including appropriate 24-hour residential services and staffing, 42 rooms for families and other residential furnishings, 3 meals per day, showers, wash stations, restrooms, laundry facilities, and storage for personal belongings, telephone access and messaging services, and mail services.
Alpha Project is a well-established homelessness service provider with approximately 30 years of experience serving individuals and families experiencing homelessness. Alpha Project serves more than 4,000 men, women, and children annually through a comprehensive portfolio of homelessness service programs that include street-based case management, interim and bridge shelters, permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, and employment services and peer support services. Alpha Project currently successfully operates multiple city-funded shelters, including the bridge shelters for single adults at 16th and Newton and 17th and Imperial, the Rosecrans Shelter, and the Harm Reduction Shelter. Alpha Project also successfully operated over 600 beds at the San Diego Convention Center as part of Operation Shelter to Home. Alpha Project has served families experiencing homelessness since 1995 through the city's interim family shelter program, permanent supportive housing programs, and rapid rehousing programs. A non-competitive procurement process under Procurement Policy 14.1 was utilized to select Alpha Project as the operator of the Family Shelter Program. A request for proposal was not deemed a viable option given the urgency to identify an experienced provider that could ramp up to meet service needs under a very compressed timeline. The Family Shelter Program will serve a group of existing families who are currently being served at the Bridge Shelter at Golden Hall that is winding down, as well as a few new households referred to the program. Existing families are scheduled to relocate to the new facility in early August. Alpha Project has committed to provide a minimum of $500,000 in leverage and in-kind resources to support program operations and household stabilization. As outlined in the table on this slide, funding for the initial term of the operating agreement with Alpha Project totals $2,456,572. This amount includes $100,000 for one-time startup costs and Housing Commission administrative fees. The ongoing annualized operator budget is $2,436,593. The funding sources for the Family Shelter Program are Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG, and City of San Diego General Fund. The initial operating term is July 27th, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. The contract's additional one-year option will be exercised contingent upon the availability of funding from the city for that purpose. Housing Commission staff recommends that the Board of Commissioners take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on the following slides. Please note that the recommendations in the slide that follow include a correction to the requested action as stated in the staff report. The staff report incorrectly referenced Procurement Policy 14.2 in the requested action and staff recommendation sections. The correct Procurement Policy section is 14.1 and was noted in the contractor selection process section of the staff report. The following slides also referred to Procurement Policy Section 14.1 to clarify the basis for the use of the non-competitive procurement process. What's missing? Staff recommends the following. That got deleted, sorry. Yep. That concludes our presentation. We're available to answer any questions.
Just verbatim right there, Casey.
Yes.
You're like, listen, I'm just going to make it up as I go along. So be it. That's good. We're good with that. We kind of know you. So, all right. We have one speaker slip submitted on this item, 106. That is Joy Sunyata. Joy, the mic is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Joy Sunyata, District 3. I'm always excited to speak when Lisa Jones and, of course, her partners, all her team has done this work. And Lisa and everyone, my name for the bridge shelters is the Lisa Jones Bridge Shelters. And thank you for all your work on that and your whole team. Your whole team. You know, when you come with the Housing Authority, it's just been amazing to listen to you. It just blows me away when you give us all that data and everything you do. So thank you for that. Okay, so we've all been worried about the Golden Hall people, and they're vulnerable. And of course, this is so bumpy, isn't it, with the housing and where we're going to go with it and how it works and what doesn't work. And sometimes I just hold my breath, and I don't want to hold it too long because I do have to breathe. But it's just amazing that we can handle all this, and it's choppy, isn't it? So I'm glad where we're headed with this. I'm still trying to understand the master MOU, but I do think I'm always worried about silos and centralizing things. But at the same time, I do think that this master MOU, knowing that all of you are in charge, I can trust that. I can't remember one of the commissioners this morning, I think it was you, used the word trust. And that's a huge word right now everywhere in government. So yes, I do trust all of you and under the master MOU. So Alpha's great. I have a lot of experience with Alpha. I love Alpha, and so I think that's a good choice. So, okay, yes, authorize it, and I love all of you. Love to all.
Thank you very much, Joy. All right, Commissioner, comments, questions? Vice Chair Clemner?
I'm going to ask you to help me with my math here as I just sort of walk through. So this is, if my back of the napkin is correct, which it might not be, this is a bit more expensive if we're thinking in terms of like on a bed night basis than, now here's where I'm blanking here. I don't remember what Golden Hall was costing us, but our price has gone up a bit in the transition. Is that right?
I don't have the number.
It's a little hard because it's not apples to apples.
Right,
because Travel Lodge has a lot of the resources built in, right? So showers and all of those kinds of things, laundry facilities, whereas Golden Hall had all those ancillary facilities, and you have single adults, families, and youth layered. So it's not quite an apples to apples. In general, as far as cost of shelter, particularly over the last 2 years, we have seen increases. It doesn't matter what size or type of shelter. Those costs of goods and services, right-sizing compensation has generally gone up. As part of the Community Action Plan, we've been looking at reprojecting what our goals are over the next 6 years, which will be coming back to this board and to the council probably around September. And right now, the average per bed night cost across our system is running around $88 a night.
Got it. So that was sort of the figure that I had in my head that I was using in place of Golden Hall, but I realized that's not the case. And so the cost at this one is going to be kind of significantly higher than that if I did my
I think
division.
Casey's doing the math right now.
It comes out about, it's 63.57, so it's a little
Okay,
less.
I trust your math over mine. Thank you.
It's hard because
yeah.
the family sizes can vary, so we have to take an average, but
Right.
So this is why I wanted to ask this instead of trusting my math here, because I know that with the family shelter in particular, the dynamics are a bit different than like single adult.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So for a single room at Travel Lodge, there's 4 beds in it, but if the family size is 2, then obviously we're not going to put someone else in those 2 beds. The whole point is to provide more privacy and more autonomy for the families. So the maximum beds that are available in this site are around 168, but based on average family size over the last several years, we expect occupancy to run around 105.
Occupancy. Okay, I'm understanding how I
So
got my math
2.5 persons.
already. Yeah.
On average, it's 2.5 persons in every family size. Obviously, that's not, we don't split the baby.
Right.
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 But the average family size ends up being about 2.5 persons. So when you think about that in 42 rooms, that's approximately 105 to 110 beds occupied at any given time, even though there's up to 4 beds per room.
Got it. Yeah, I was using the rooms as the denominator rather than the beds. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's really helpful because I was like, well, this is twice as expensive as we normally. Got it. Okay. So and I appreciate that. And, if there's one thing that I've learned about these shelter dynamics that you're managing is that it's very complicated because it's not just an inventory of beds and an inventory of people, and you just seamlessly match them together. People have different needs, different configurations. It's not always a perfect match, and so that I understand that is helpful. I very much understand, and part of my expectation in that question is I do expect these costs to go up because is the reason you pointed out. I mean, the compensation alone we've been seeing and the studies and the reports that you brought us previously that we do have real staffing challenges, and we have run into very sad stories about people working in shelters and staying in other shelters because of the high cost of living here and the low wage of some of these jobs, which I'll point out is above minimum wage, but that is still not enough for this region. So I think that we're all prepared for these costs to go up, and I don't want us to get stuck on trying to drive down expecting the cost to just be as basement as possible, because what we need to do is invest what is necessary to get the results that we're looking for. So with that said, I appreciate the work that went into figuring out what to do with this particular shelter service and these service providers, because obviously we do need to be looking for who can provide the best value out of the choices that we have, and we have a relatively small number of providers competing for these things, and we have to go with those who can provide us the best resources for the best price, because we are under-resourced, relative to the task that we have. So I'm happy to support this. Thank you so much to the staff that have been working, since the announcement about Golden Hall happened, working to make this as seamless as possible of a transition. The last thing that I would kind of ask is, I see this is a 2-year. I closed it, but this is 2 years, right?
Correct.
And this is a more global question, but it seems like quite a number of years now that we've been running. Actually, maybe off the top of your head, Lisa, how long have we had year-round shelters of any sort provided?
The bridge shelters came online in winter of 2017. And if you remember in the beginning, it would be like a 6-month contract, a 12-month contract, then a 6-month contract. I think now as a region, we understand that this is an ongoing investment, and also making sure that our contracts at least have one renewal and sometimes more helps the staff feel confident that they have jobs and that, they have a steady level of employment, which also helps us attract and then retain people. So yes, these, understanding that creating a level of security for both staff and residents, that these resources are going to continue, is important, and it helps create more stabilization in the environments.
It's hard for me to even fathom the fact that it was less than 6 years ago that we had no year-round shelter in the city, and so this is really an incredible undertaking that has happened over the last 6 years. I increasingly start to think about, and you don't have to answer this on the spot here, but how much of these costs that we're managing, how helpful would it be if we, and I think that you're all doing this, but the other agencies that we're dealing with, the city, the county, et cetera, it does still seem like we're in a bit of the model that we started with, in 2016, 17, 18, where we are not recognizing this as a more or less permanent fixture that we need to manage over a long period of time. And this is a lot of this is not within our control at this agency, but how much of these costs are reflective of the fact that we need to change locations, that we're going to locations that aren't really set up for this, that we have to provide, that our contracts are renewing 1 year at a time, that sometimes we have to change providers. It seems like all of that, it has to be adding to our overall costs here, just the number of changes that have to constantly be made. And if, as a region, if we were to undertake a more robust recognition of the fact that we need to be providing these things for at least the next 10 years, right? I mean, that seems like the easiest. It ain't gonna get fixed in less than 10 years, for sure. Would it help with our efficiencies if we were able to plan these things out in longer time frames? And I'm going to recognize that it's possible the answer is no. Right?
So we might have less gray hair. That would definitely be part of it. But I think we're seeing as sort of the shift at the city with Sarah Jarman leading HSSD, and really sort of a really coalescing around these needs at the city between different city departments, DREAM, facilities, those kinds of things, that sort of those longer term strategies are starting to form. So I think that's a real positive, that we're looking at sort of like longer term solutions and what those investments look like in order to activate longer term solutions. So I feel like in the next couple of months, there's going to be some really robust dialogue around that kind of stuff when you think about the city's shelter strategy. And we also think about bringing back projections from the Community Action Plan on homelessness. So to your point around sort of long-term planning, and this is going to take some time, one of the conversations we've been having around these new projections of the Community Action Plan is how many crisis beds do we need right now, but starting to invert, and like at what point are we able to scale that down, because we're scaling up prevention, so less folks are coming into the system. So right now, when you look at an investment strategy and sort of the first 2 years of the next 6 years of the plan, we understand that shelter and crisis response is going to be critical because there's a lot of folks in the system right now, and we aren't going to be able to scale up prevention like tomorrow, right? So as we scale up prevention, then our investment moves to the front end, and our crisis response levels need less. And as we scale up housing solutions, then we have more flow through in the system. So you have really robust prevention. Your crisis response needs go down because less people are coming in, and you're doing a better job of getting people out because you have that long-term housing investment. So as we're modeling right now, we're modeling in sort of 2 years phases, knowing that if we do our job right, that those investments will move.
That is a fantastic answer, and thank you for sort of bringing us back to the continual trade-off between permanent housing, prevention, and shelter. And it is helpful every time we're dealing with our shelter discussion to remember that it is more expensive than prevention, right? This is what you're kind of constantly reminding us. It is a lot cheaper to get somebody rapidly rehoused or prevent them from being unhoused to begin with than it is to meet all of their needs when they're particularly chronically
in both money and quality of life.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that makes a lot of sense. And That being said, just from where I sit, I mean, I would certainly be supportive of, more upfront investments to the extent that we can make them on, sites that are going to be, reliably online for more than 6 months, more than a year, et cetera, and have, I mean, I just think about what we have to do to provide, showers in a location that doesn't have showers versus, how that compares to, we know that we're gonna have to have a certain number of showers for a long time, right? And so if we do need to, as our shelter configuration changes, if it does mean that there are higher costs on the front end for us to have, more, long-term solutions, I think that's something that we have to recognize and accept. Long-winded way of saying, I think it's important that we be willing to make those investments and not look for the absolute, cheapest thing we can get for any short period of time, because we do keep renewing these contracts. So, yeah. So, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Klempner. I will just make a few comments on to echo what the Vice Chair just said. I do think that we have to stop, having this discussion like it's going to end tomorrow, right? That has been the problem that has plagued our conversation. In 2004, 40% of Temecula and Murrieta were driving south every morning to come to work in San Diego. That was a sign to most of us that, boy, we have a housing cost problem. It hasn't gotten better. And now, as the Vice Chair just said, having this annual discussion about, do we need shelter, do we not need shelter? 2017 was the start of the reality, which is you're going to need year-round shelter. For those of you who didn't see the article, I thought it was fascinating that 59% of San Diego's housing stock is now $1 million or more. 910,000 is the median. That alone tells you that we're going to continue to have a problem. When I moved to this region, I was in my 20s. I was paying $800 a month for a 2-bedroom place with a roommate. Those days are over. And so shelter and housing are now a part of our everyday conversation, and we can't pretend like, well, every year in July it may change, right? The cost of living, driving people to shelters, to cars, to the street. So what you're doing is essential. And I was in a meeting at the county with one of the county supervisors this week about the behavioral health structure, because a lot of that is going to need to be embedded in this conversation long term. Is we have to build the appropriate behavioral health infrastructure, so that it aligns well with our operation, right? And I always use this when I'm in conversations with people who are disagreeing with the Housing Commission. The number one group headed to the streets these days are seniors. We've done nothing wrong. We've done nothing wrong. They are being impacted by the housing crisis, the market, the cost of living, and that should make everybody concerned. And so, Lisa, when you were here the last month, and Vice Chair Klempner asked you the question about what does an open bunk mean, and you said, well, a lot of times, as you said today, we have 25 available on average every morning. Top bunks don't work necessarily for seniors. And so the harsh reality is that we have to continue to have this conversation and do this well. I actually am a believer, as I think the Vice Chair is, that this should be a 3-year window. We should be looking at what do we need to do over the next 3 years, not have this 1 year. It may even need to be 5 years, because I don't see the housing situation in San Diego and the median price, changing. As we're having this conversation now, about how we get people off the streets quickly, and a home key, for example. And our objective is to get as many people off the streets as fast as we can. And building never happens fast. And so I commend you for this presentation, Lisa and Casey. I think that people were worried about what was going to happen in Golden Hall when it was announced. I mean, I know I got calls. I'm sure the Vice Chair got calls. Any of us got calls. What are you going to do with people? This is a solution to move people, and I'm glad that we were able to work with Alpha. I will encourage Mr. Dargan and the city to work with us so we can move much faster on moving the youth here and getting them into our facility as fast as possible. I know that everybody goes, well, that's just the way DSD works. Today, we need DSD and the Housing Commission to work really well together, so we work faster and more effective, and we can actually tell everybody that Golden Hall was closed appropriately, effectively, safely, securely for those being impacted. So we are, I think this has been a great presentation. I love the fact that you were able to pivot quickly with Alpha, so kudos.
Just a quick update. So what we anticipate happening is the families transitioning out by the second week of August, which means all the families will be at the Travel Lodge. And the TAY population that was at Golden Hall, there's I think less than 10 now still there. Most of them have transitioned to the LGBTQ Center, Affirming Shelter, and or the USA Shelter. So those last remaining TAY will transition by the end of this month, and that will just leave the single adult males downstairs at Golden Hall.
Okay, wonderful. All right, no further comments, questions. I will entertain a motion. I think I need a motion on this. I need a motion and a second. Motion by Commissioner Jackson. Second by Vice Chair Klumpner. Any further comments? All right, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? No abstentions. The motion carries 4-0 unanimously. Thank you very much, Lisa and Casey, for your work on this. All right, we will now adjourn the special session on this item of 106, and we will take the final item, which is on the agenda, which is an informational workshop about the Housing Commission's Employee Engagement Survey, and we will take any public comments after the staff presentation. Vice President of Business Administration, Suket Dayal, and Senior Human Resource Analyst, Katie Vigil, will present this item, and it's good to see you both here. And I think one of the things that we take great pride in is that we're trying to build a great culture here at the Housing Commission, because everybody that works for the organization has a tough job every day, and so this is really important. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Mitch, and good morning, Commissioners. We are presenting an informational workshop on the results of the San Diego Housing Commission's Employee Engagement Survey. Michael McKenna, our Vice President of Human Resources, is attending a National Labor and Employment Law Conference, so I will be presenting with Katie Vigil, our Senior Human Resources Analyst. So let's start with the question, why do it? One of the strategic priority areas we identified in our plan is investing in our teams. Now that is, an engagement survey allows the team to provide confidential feedback on areas such as communications, recruitment, manager quality, career development, and engagement. It also measures employee commitment, motivation, sense of purpose, and passion to work at the organization. This survey allows us to align our practices with industry standards and create a highly motivated and high-performing workforce so that we continue to be an employer of choice. We partnered with a third-party independent Flex Surveys, and the survey was conducted online. The responses were confidential and anonymous. The survey occurred between March 27th and April 10th of this year. Very pleased to announce we received a total of 287 responses, and that's at that time our team was 350 strong. That equates to an outstanding 82% participation rate. I remember when we started this, Flex Surveys had a graph that we were tracking, and the responses just every day was just more than what we anticipated. So it was a strong start and a strong finish. Survey covered 11 categories. A total of 54 questions were asked. And again, 82%, very pleased with the participation rate that we got. So one key discussion point was, who do we use as our control group? We're not a tech private sector. We don't have fringe benefits like food, sleeping pods. We are not a small agency. We're not a startup agency. So we wanted to make sure that we're compared to a group of comparable peers. We worked with Flex Survey, and our pilot group was basically we geared it to nonprofits and government agencies of a similar size, so 200 to 500 employees. And this is, of course, confined to the United States. We also wanted the data to be fresh. We knew COVID can skew the data. If we went back 5 years, all of a sudden the numbers will look a whole lot different. So we wanted to make sure that the organizations that are part of our group were surveyed within the past year. So we're compared to 100 agencies, like-size agencies, like industry agencies that have done an engagement survey within the past year. Pleased to report we exceeded the benchmark with a score of 3.8, which is within 60th percentile of the high-performing agencies. There's a lot more to be proud of, and Katie will take it from here.
Good morning. The survey questions are on an industry standard scale known as a Likert scale. Two of the most important questions are asked on an 11-point scale. This metric has been proven to be highly correlated with all the underlining themes with employee satisfaction, tenure, and overall future corporate success. The first 11-point scale question was, what is the likelihood you would recommend the Housing Commission as a place to work? Our employee engagement is 82% based on this question. The 82% is derived by adding those identified as passive promoters in yellow and promoters identified in green. As you can see on this slide, 28% of employees responded with a 7 or an 8, and 54% responded with a 9 or a 10. Notably, the 82% score well surpasses the 75th percentile benchmark of other highly performing agencies. The survey also used an 11-point Likert scale to assess how likely employees are to recommend the Housing Commission services. The Housing Commission has an 89% endorsement rate based on their responses to this question. This percentage is also the result of adding the passive promoters and the promoters. This reflects an overwhelming number of employees who believe in the Housing Commission's mission and vision. The remainder of the survey contains 11 industry standard categories, as shown on this slide. The questions within these categories are on a 5-point Likert scale. The external benchmark is based on a 50% overall average of top-performing agencies. The Housing Commission scored at or above the benchmark in 10 out of 11 categories, with an overall average of 3.8 compared to the external benchmark of 3.7. Although the survey contains 54 questions, certain benchmark questions are an industry standard and are consistent across all engagement surveys. With these questions, the Housing Commission is at the 50th or 75th percentile. Shades of green on the slide indicate that the Housing Commission was at or above the benchmark on each of these categories. The Housing Commission scored particularly high on, I have the tools and resources to do my job well. Employees have a strong sense of teamwork and cooperation with their immediate team. And over the past year, employees have the opportunity to grow. The key takeaways from the survey are that the Housing Commission employees know how their job contributes to the success of the agency, employees are proud to work at the Housing Commission, and employees feel that their manager is available when they need questions or they need any additional help. In addition, staff would like the Commission to maximize internal communication efforts by enhancing communication channels throughout the agency. Also, staff wants to educate, they also want to increase staff education on existing and new initiatives and programs. And for training and development, staff indicated that they would like the Housing Commission to refine and expand program offerings and opportunities.
Now, to maintain and build upon the strengths identified through the survey, we will be implementing a post-survey action plan. Essentially, we'll take a two-pronged approach. First, we'll hire a consultant to lead agency-wide focus groups to identify areas of growth and make recommendations to leadership. And second, each department will be responsible to identify 2 or 3 areas that they'll focus on over the next 18 to 24 months and partner with human resources to take measurable action. Flex Survey, a subject matter expert on the engagement, recommends that our primary goal for the next survey should be to increase the overall engagement by 2 points. I do want to point out that because our current engagement score exceeds the benchmark, it'll be significant work to move the needle, to make the incremental improvements, but we are on it. And that concludes our presentation and open for questions.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. It's nice to see you, Katie. Questions, comments? All right. Go ahead, Vice Chair Clemmer.
I love this. Thank you so much for all the work that you put into this. Obviously, our employee satisfaction is incredibly important, especially because many of these positions are not easy jobs, and they are public sector jobs, and the scope of the agency is kind of evolving and changing every year. So, some of these issues around clarity and communication, it makes a lot of sense given the nature of what we do. But oftentimes it seems like we really mostly are thinking about and considering employee satisfaction in the context of like our labor contracts, where it's just the costs that we're discussing, right? Where the money's going, how the money's being spent. And there's this whole other area that is being dealt with in this survey, which is all of those, for the most part, kind of non-cost related aspects of this job, how well people understand it, how communicate it, how appreciate it, the questions looked fantastic. The use of the selection of the control group, I think the fact that we are right in the range that we're in suggests that we did pick the right control group. As I was looking at those questions, I don't really have any questions specific to those, because I'm sure that you all and Jeff are looking at all of the little areas where there is room to go from the 50th percentile up, right? Which 50th percentile is not bad to begin with, but and then obviously you mentioned you have a follow-up plan, the focus groups to get that qualitative information. This seems like just a great value proposition in terms of our employee satisfaction, and a wonderful enhancement to our labor contracts. So thank you so much, and I look forward to. I assume that this will be an annual, or this will be coming back to us in the future.
18 to 24 months. Yes.
And is this the first time that we've done this, or am I forgetting another?
No,
one?
we've done it twice before.
Okay.
But
is this the first time that we
use?
use?
The first time we presented it.
Okay, and did we use the same benchmarks before? Is this like a new methodology that we're doing?
I believe we use different benchmarking. We use a different company as well too, but I believe it was similar to the scope of what we were doing.
Got it. So, but our next presentation will be an apples to apples, so we can see it longitudinally. That's great. That's wonderful. I look forward to seeing that when it comes back to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have anything to really add to what Vice Chair Klempner said. I look forward to the comparison for the next one. I will just say this, as I've often said at every meeting, I appreciate everything that every member of this team contributes to the effort every day at a time when it's really, really critical. In a moment where we have to be the unifying force for good and moving people in the right direction. I think that everybody shows up and does it well. It was great to see the results, because I think that we're not just doing it amidst the chaos and not really caring about the people who are behind the energy and the effort. So that's really important to me. So Jeff Davis, to you and the senior team, clearly the results show that there is a good link between the senior team and the employees who are working really hard every day, and so again, I think it'll be really important. We hear that we see the next one that's kind of apples to apples, but really pleased that we're above the benchmark, and that we're scoring so high. And you're right, Zuket, when you're doing this well, sometimes it's easy for people to go, well, it's all working, so let's not screw with it. Always looking for ways to improve. It should be our motto on everything we do. So I commend you for that. All right. Thank you very much for your presentation today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so this concludes the board's regular and special meetings of today. Unless there's nothing else, I want to say thank you to my fellow commissioners for being here. We had a quorum. It is now 11:09, and we are adjourned. Thank you.